everyone, welcome to the Miss Texas show, where we showcase the life in Texas and highlight the amazing survivors of traumatic events, family violence, sex trafficking, sexual assault, and other traumatic events, and the community leaders to share their community resources and what they do. We have a segment called Military Time, where we invite military and veterans who would like to share with us their experience during and after the military service. And we run this in partnership with the Veterans Chamber of Commerce. And we also have another segment called Beautiful Ashes. This is a segment where we invite our pageant sisters who are nominees, winners, our sisters who are the artists, including musicians, actors, dancers, but also very importantly, the survivors and ambassadors of our community to share their experiences and most importantly, what they're doing to impact the community. So if you would like to be on this show, make sure that you email us at missusatexas@gmail.com. It is msusatexas@gmail.com, or you can contact us through the Facebook with the same handle name, that is Miss USA Texas. Now, without further ado, today we have our special guest, Miss Bailey Smith. Miss Smith and I met. Hi everyone. Welcome, Bailey. So Bailey and I, we met when I was guest on her show, which she is a host of, called Stop Child Abuse Now Scan. And I think that was maybe beginning of the year, right? And she is a very active activist who is strongly supporting the cause. So without further ado, I wanted to pass the mic on her to let her do an introduction of what she is doing and how she become an activist about this. Welcome, Bailey.
Thank you for having me, and it's good to see you in person. So I am a domestic violence mental health advocate. Obviously, it didn't happen for no reason. I went through a horrific situation, and mental health was involved because domestic violence, domestic abuse, mental health, it's all intertwined. Child abuse, sexual abuse, all that stuff is all intertwined. So like I said, I went through a really, really bad situation, which we'll get to shortly. And when it was all over and done with, and I got a lot of help, I said, okay, I went through this. Now, how do I move forward? And then I said to myself, I went through this for a reason. God, I believe in God, and I believe He made me go through this situation so I can go out there and help other women. So I started advocating on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. And I don't know if you know Lisa Zarcone from, okay, she was a big NASCA person. She's an ambassador.
Okay.
It's National Association for Adult Survivors of Child Abuse. And I'm a podcast host there on Monday nights. They have shows 5 days a week, 365 days a year. And she contacted me on LinkedIn after she saw all the things that I've written, and she asked if I'd like to be on the show. I said, well, I thankfully had a very good childhood, and I was not sexually abused. She goes, no, our show is about all kinds of abuse, domestic violence, trauma. So I said, sure. So it was April 2019 that I did my interview there, and then I became a volunteer. And I started doing the social media posting and all that kind of stuff. And then I started getting different offers to do other podcasts in different platforms. You know, I am Jewish, I'm religious, and again, I believe it's not just my religion, but all religions, domestic violence is still very taboo. It's still very much not talked about. And I decided, you know, wherever I can talk about that, it has to come out, because there are so many people like myself who don't even know that they are living as an abused woman or man. So basically, I I did one for a Jewish organization, um, and talked about how we have to start really coming out there. And it's amazing. I feel so good because I've made so many great connections where people thank me. And that's where I feel like I'm doing what I was set out to do. I don't make money on this. This is all volunteer. I do all this social media posting. Every single night I post a show, almost every single night. Sometimes I have to get somebody to replace me. I give up my Monday nights to do the hour-and-a-half show, which I love. And whenever I can advocate, whenever I can open this big mouth, I will open this big mouth. And I have a stalker out there. And, I'm still doing it because, it has to be. If I don't do it, people like me and people like your guest last time, Portia Daniels, who her story really touched me, and all the other people, then who's doing it? And when I see girlfriends of mine who have gone through horrific divorces or are going through horrific divorces and have to deal with their narcissistic sociopath exes, thank God I don't really have to, I see them posting things now. And I'm like, wow, good for you. Like they're starting to try to also put put stuff out there and talk about it. And so it really, that's, I feel like I'm in the beginning, still in the beginning stages. Again, I also have, when you're a survivor of trauma, abuse, violence, it's going to be 5 years in total of separation and divorce. And when you have children, it's, when you go through trauma, you never fully heal. So that's why I always say sexual abuse, violence, domestic violence, any kind of trauma you've been through, whether you're a child, you're an adult, or whatever, we all have the same after effects. We all have PTSD, we all have trauma. And it's, I have my good days and my bad days. Thank God I'm still in therapy all these years. Group therapy is amazing. And I would think that, I know for domestic violence, it is amazing. I would assume that for any other kind of abuse, it would be really good. So, sometimes I'll put a meme out and I'll write something and I'll get messages. Oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay? And we've just become a huge network of people, and we're getting out there, and it's going to take a long time. Like I always say, we want to end the stigma and we want to end the cycle so our next generation, our kids and their kids, don't have to live with this. So that's what I'm in the process of doing right now. So I have so much more that I want to do, but this is the beginning.
Yes, I'm so proud of you. I know when I met you, I didn't know you've just started in April last year because, you are such an active activist. Like I said, I see you posting every week and more postings and comments. And I really love the work which you do and the positive energy because just like you said, we can all connect from Miss Portia Daniels, which we will put in the link below so our audience can see if you haven't watched that episode about her story. And just like what Bailey says, that every victim, even though we don't went through the same situation, we can always relate to each other. The physical wounds will go away, and the emotional and the psychological will never. And there are cloudy days, just like you say. There are days that you feel on top of the world, and I understand you feel like empowering to yourself when you help other people because you don't want other people to go through the same thing like what you have been through. And I know that this is what you're doing. That's great. And we have a great community of people, like a lot of our guests that are being interviewed, they are all like volunteers like you and I because of the passion and because we wanted to bring the awareness so that we can bring the prevention so that we can put an end to this. Yes. So it is lovely that, you also mentioned NASCA, which I'm also an ambassador of. And lovely how much other work that you're doing. Love to have you send us the links if you have about the other talk shows, including the Jewish talk show, and we will also be linking in the comment section below. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about the stats of the domestic violence and the sexual assault, because I think it is very important. Some of us, we are more like visual. Some of us may be more engineers. They need to see the numbers. So let's show them the numbers. And unfortunately, it's not like, okay, the economy and the money is going up, but these are the numbers of the cases. So I wanted you to tell us, our audience, a little bit more about this.
So you have to remember the numbers have gone up during COVID, unfortunately. So I don't have those numbers, but I have basically 94% of women killed by men were murdered or by someone that they know. Okay. So again, 94% of women killed by men or is usually somebody that they know. Okay. 20 people per minute are victims of physical violence in the United States. That's just in the United States. This is happening all over the world. One thing that's not part of this is that, well, it is kind of, is that domestic violence is the #1 killer of women across the world. Can you imagine? 10 million, it's 20 people per minute that are victims of physical violence in the United States, 10 million women per year. 38 million women have experienced physical, intimate partner violence in their life, which is 1 out of every 3 women. So, I mean, it's there are also statistics on men. 1 in 9, I think it is. And for men, it's usually not physical. It's more emotional abuse, mental abuse, verbal abuse. I can't think of any stories on the top of my head of a man being murdered by another man in an intimate relationship. But if you know, I mean, feel free to bring it up. But up to 10 million children have witnessed abuse, and children are considered abused when they are witnessing abuse because they're a part of it, and that's part of my story. So it's the effect on them is horrific. And I know I've mentioned this before, maybe I did when you were on the show, but they have studied the brain of men, boys, young adults that have witnessed abuse, okay? And their brain activity has been shown to be that of vets. That means they're in a home of abuse and they're witnessing it, they're in a war zone. Now think about that.
Oh wow, yeah, I don't recall that. Yeah, it's interesting because recently there has been due to the COVID that more people and more organizations are active on the like what we're doing Zoom and then webinars and things like that. So recently just watched a documentary of a child abuse. So he not only was a child survivor from domestic violence, physical abuse, but also mental abuse, like, just threats and things like that. And I believe when I saw him on the documentary and based on the calculation, I think he is probably 40, 50 years old. And he is still not over it, just like we talked before. This is not something that, you get a cold and you get over with. You never will. But it is more like a coping skills. How we cope with it, and there can be a single trigger. I talked about with Mr. Canada from the Boy Scout abuse, child abuse, and we talked about the mental impact and how it impacts a person's life. from their job, whether they can even hold a steady job, from whether they can have a steady relationship, let alone they can even get married. And this is a huge, huge problem. And you know that I'm an activist against sex trafficking as well. These are all intercommingled together because you know a lot of the mental controlling aspect of the pimp and the controlling aspect of the abuser, it's the same. And look at the controlling wheel. And we've sent in one of the videos about the controlling wheel before, but we will include the controlling wheel as well in this episode on the content.
It's the vicious cycle.
Yes, it is a cycle. So you know they wanted to at first it's the honeymoon stage.
Right.
Shower you with you know
Yeah.
flowers, with gifts,
Yeah.
and just like you know we met people and the survivors, they were like, who would marry a person who said I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna beat you up? No, they're gonna tell you I love you, you're the most pretty woman in this world, you're the sweetheart, and all of these. And once they take control of you, you know there were different symptoms. Someone will say, oh my God, you're all mine. You know, these are the red flags, but as people who has never been through that, it sounds really nice. It's like, oh my God, it's so sweet. He wants to be with me. But these, if you are looking and, you know, you see those red flags, you need to add them up together. And then, you know, we have like red flags about child abuse. We have red flags about domestic abuse, which we will, you know, link again about those information as well. But you know, you talked about the COVID number that went up. I don't know about East Coast, but I imagine like you know, just nationwide the number went up. In fact, just recently we had a very shocking news. It's reported by I'm here in Houston, Texas, by the local news station ABC 13. It says suspect had HPD called on him twice over the weekend before the sergeant was killed. So and he you know we help people that regardless of you know you talked about male can be survivors, can be victims, and the different religions, regardless if you have a religion, because it's the freedom of religion, and it's different background regardless of your age, your race, your nationality, but anyone can be a victim. In his case, I don't know about the wife, but he's an illegal alien, and not only the wife had to suffer from his abuse, now the sergeant is killed. And you know there are so many people out there, and Houston is the number one in terms of the you know numbers of sex trafficking, and the number has gone up. I just was in a coalition meeting recently, and the number has gone up, believe it or not. So there's a lot of work for you and
Oh yeah.
our people, you know, to do, and it will never end. And I know that you never end, I never end. We are a community, and we're gonna put an end to this together, and we will never end until it's done.
I hope so. I hope so. When I hear the stories of sex trafficking, we had in just not far from where I live. I mean, in Tampa this year, I think it was, there was a whole sting that operation of over 100 kids that they or maybe more that they found. We live in a world with a very broken system, and it's not just over in you know the eastern part of the world. It's the entire world. We have a very like a lot of the people that I am friends with on LinkedIn are from the UK, and the system there is horrific. And you know it's Australia. You know, I see a lot of people from Australia, you know, write stuff. And we're the United States, and it's so broken here. And I can tell you from my own experience, I was failed by the system. And I'm not talking about the court system. That I got lucky, okay? I got custody of my youngest. But, you know, do you want me to tell you a little bit about my story?
I'm listening because you know the court is a totally new conversation, but tell us like what you mean.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit of what I went through, and then how I was failed by the police.
Okay.
And
yes.
that's something I know that supposedly they before COVID, like a couple of months before COVID, they started implementing in the police departments training. And that was something I wanted so badly to do, or at least tell my story to these police, because they failed me so bad, and I suffered torture for like almost 2 years, until I fought until I got him arrested, even for a short time. But very quickly, I had a normal childhood. I had great friends, everything. I had a normal teenage years. I was rebellious. I met my ex through his sister. She was my friend. And I knew him a long time because he used to come over to her place, whatever, but he was 7.5 years older than me. And when I was 20, we started dating. And of course, he was Mr. Charmer. Okay. Very, very good looking. I was always into good looking bad boys, even though he didn't come off as a bad boy. He was complimentive and, all the things that, how, you want from a man. From when we met till we got married was a year. So about 21 and a half, I got married. And shortly after that, he started with his rage. He would have anger and rage. So, we spent a lot of time with my family, and we all tiptoed around him. But back in the mid-90s, who knew about narcissism, about sociopaths, about domestic violence? Who talked about these things? I did not know I was an abused woman until after I was separated. 21 years. 21 years. Now, I suspected certain things, and I would confront him, or there was certain sign, whatever. And he gaslighted me. I'm sure you've heard that term.
Yes.
And gaslighting means when they twist everything so that they make you look like you're crazy. How dare you accuse me of doing that? You're crazy. Maybe you're doing that. So they twist whatever they're really doing to cover it up and make you feel crazy.
Yeah.
So that's
they tell the outside. Yeah, they tell the outside like she's just confused. This is not the truth.
And then they hoover you, which is when they start with the gifts, and they try to charm you back, suck you back into their
the controlling will, the cycle. Yes.
Now I had no idea I was a woman that lived in an abusive marriage. My girlfriends now will tell me, "Oh, we used to warn you, he's crazy." I don't remember anything. Really, I don't. My family accepted him. He came from a very dysfunctional family. He spoke to the parents, spoke to siblings, didn't, and back and forth. That's a red flag. I mean, I can look back now and tell you every single red flag. But back then, I was young and naive, and I will tell you, and I printed out sociopath, narcissists, which his picture should be right there. But one of the things about sociopaths and narcissists is that they are just amazing at charming you, making you feel special, and just making you feel like you're the most special person in the world. And a lot of them live double lives. So I lived my life. We had 3 children. I'm not going to say there wasn't times I didn't want to leave. I think back, if I even tried, he had so much power over me back then. He would have destroyed me and taken my kids. So, I lived through it. We celebrated 20 years of marriage, November 2015. And, I thought everything was okay. We worked together, I never I never felt like an abused woman, ever, not in 20 years. I felt very loved. one of the biggest problems was his violence, and it was not let out on me for the most part. It was breaking things or destroying things that were precious to me, or just constant anger and violence. And then, you know, we went away November 2015, and December 2015, at the end of December, he like walked out.
Oh, wow.
He said, I got permission because it was a Sabbath. And he goes, the rabbi told me I can go to the hospital. My gastro, because he had a lot of health issues, but his gastro told him he should go see his partner, where to go, blah, blah, blah. And I believed him. I mean, why shouldn't I believe him? And let's go back one step. He was a good father, okay? My kids loved him unconditionally. They wanted his approval. They loved him, you know, and that was very important to me. Anyway, fast forward, literally walked out. We spoke. He said, I'm in the emergency room. They can't figure out what's wrong. Anyway, the next day, I always took care of the finances in our business, and he basically did all the sales. I did the customer service, and we worked well together for the most part. And I saw that he had taken out a couple of $100. And I called him and I questioned him, and he was like, oh, it was for my copay. And I'm like, they don't collect the copay. That's what I do for a living, insurance. They don't collect the copay in the emergency room. So I just started thinking, and, you know, my mind started going. And then the next thing I know, he's all over the internet tagged with a woman.
Oh.
And he blocked me. I couldn't see it. People were calling me. So I said to my kids, show me what's going on. This is a month after we celebrated 20 years, okay? And he had told me, oh, I love you more now than I ever did, and couldn't live without you, and typical things that the sociopath narcissists will do. And so this is really where the craziness started, and there's no time for me to even get into it. But to just the very short version was that I had to cut off his bank card because he kept pulling money out. And I was also like in shock. I was like, what the heck is going on? And, you know, one day he just walked into the house to get something. I'm like, what are you doing here? You left. He's like, oh, I have to get some stuff. So I followed him into the bedroom. And I had one child home. It was midwinter, and he was off, my middle son. And I told him, oh, by the way, there's no more taking out money. I cut off your bank card. Now, really, he could have gone into the bank and gotten a new one, right?
Right.
He snapped. And that's the thing where Portia was talking about how he beat her. He was not in his right mind at that moment. These guys can snap like this. You know, they tell you they love you and they put you on a pedestal and they couldn't live without you. It's obsession. It's control. It's not love. They don't know how to love. It's obsession and it's control. And you know, that's when it becomes very, very scary. Now, I was naive, and, you know, the man, I mean, yeah, maybe pushed me here and there, and, you know, little things, but nothing where I would have ever expected what happened. And what happened was he wanted my bank card, and I was holding on to my purse, and he literally beat the crap out of me and almost strangled me. And my son heard the commotion and broke down the door and saved my life. Now, I will tell you right now, my biggest mistake, and I made my son go around the corner to somebody safe. He had called my other one in school, my oldest, who was on an Uber home. I was so shocked and numb, obviously he left, that I just couldn't, I was like, how can I put this man in jail? He's my kid's father. That's what I was thinking. the police came and they said, we got 2 phone calls, blah, blah, you know. I said, look, I'm not ready to talk, but I reserve the right. And 2 weeks later, and I gave him, I said, I'm giving you 2 weeks to get help, to start getting help. Little did I know that men like that can't get better. Now there are 2 kinds. There's a sociopath narcissist. There's a sociopath. There's narcissists. Narcissists, because a girlfriend of mine was just asking me the other day, what's the difference? My ex is more of a narcissist. I said, narcissists, and was reading up on this, they can change if they recognize their behavior. If they don't think they're doing anything wrong and it's their culture, they're never gonna be able to change. My ex wanted to change, okay? He wanted to come home. And I always say, and people get so angry at me, that beating was the best thing he ever did, because it numbed me. I went from thinking I have a happily, you know, we're happily married. And yes, I started standing up for myself when he had his anger issues, and we always hosted guests and people, and he had no shame. He would put me down, you know, all the verbal, mental, emotional abuse over 20 years. And I just, you know, I chalked it up to him, you know, coming from a crazy family, crazy mom, you know. So, you know, I did try to get him arrested 2 weeks after, and then he went and did something and got me arrested. And I'm not even going to go further from there, because I'm going to write a book and you guys will find out. There's not enough time. But what I want to say is that one thing I did do is when the first day I started in group therapy for domestic violence at a shelter, I was listening to all these people's stories, and I was like, mind blown. Of course, you relate to all of them in some way. I said, you know, my abuser wants to get help. He's not like any of your abusers. And probably one of the last times I was there, I said, you know what, my abuser's just like yours. He's never going to change. And the more and more things I've learned since then, which is going back 5 years almost, is that they go from victim to victim. Now, I was the second wife. He was married for a minute, okay, prior to me. He's on his 3rd wife right now, okay? She knows a lot. She knows some stuff. She doesn't believe it. He's so good he's a charmer.
Yes.
I mean, he had plenty of girlfriends in between, but he still wanted me back and begged me and begged me. And when I finally said, I'm not taking you back, that's when he started to torture me. And that's when the police got involved. And they just, you know, I couldn't, we both dropped charges. I really got screwed because mine was real and I had proof. His was not real. The system really failed me really badly. You know, until there was one sergeant, one detective, and I had an advocate from the police department. And this is something that they have to get more of, because she was one person in that county that was dealing with a gazillion cases. She's the one that forced them to put together a case.
Wow.
Even though I had a case,
yes.
She sat down with me and the sergeant, and we went through all the police reports, and they put together a case. In the meantime, he went to jail for a very short time. That was the deal I made. He was supposed to come out the rest of the year. He was supposed to be on probation, get mental health care, because I kept thinking about my kids. You know, they loved their father, even though they were furious with him. And what I wanted was my kids to have a father, you know. And I had begged him, please, I'm begging you, I'm begging you, please, let's work together, let's parent together. I had my now 16-year-old, he was 12, 11 and a half then. He was standing there, he was my witness. And he said, if you're not taking me back, no. And that's when he really started all the torture, a lot more of the torture, and I'm talking about internet stuff, things that were crimes that the cops did nothing. And, you know, the more things I read, I mean, I could train these cops, like, unless they're getting training, you know. But one of the things the sergeant told me, he goes, Miss Smith, I want to just tell you one thing. This man will never leave you alone. In the last 5 years, I had 1 year of peace. Okay? He's still harassing me with the restraining order, with the warrant, because he left the state, my state, on probation, so he can't come back. It's just, that's, the system is broken in every single part of the state, in the world. And that's, I'm not going to get more into this story, but like Portia said, this happened to me for a reason. Now I said to myself, I can curl up in a ball, which I did many, many, many times, even to this day. And I could just, you know, not move on, or I can take this, what happened to me, and I can go and help other people. And that's what I chose. Remember, I also had to deal with the kids' issues, what they witnessed. It was not an easy task. You know, we went from being what I thought was a normal, happy semi-normal, happy family, you know, to all of a sudden overnight to this craziness. And it was very public, very public. I'm no longer in that community. And I lost, you know, I lost a lot of people that were my friends. I cut off a lot of people, and I have my best friends for life that live all over, not here, but we are a huge support system to each other. A lot of us went through similar situations. And I have my crew here that are divorced, unfortunately, also deal with narcissistic men, and we support each other. And, you know, it's very lonely. And another thing Portia was saying was that the next relationship she got into was the same thing. Now, I did not date for a very long time. My kids think I'm a nun. I hope they don't see this. I became friends with someone 2018, 2019, on and off for 2 years, much younger than me, I realized was an emotional abuser. And one of the things I did a lot of investigating and discussing with my friends is, why are there so many narcissistic sociopaths or men or guys that are not well? I mean, if you're in the dating world, you see it. And it's not just men, it's women also, but it's mostly men. And one of the things we finally realized, and I've talked about this on the show, is that all these men have been through some sort of childhood trauma, whether it was sexual abuse, whether it was verbal, mental, emotional abuse, whatever it was, and they never got help. It went with them into their adult life. And until they acknowledge it, and one of the quotes I've heard is, "You're only sick as your secrets." If you can't acknowledge it, and you can't say, "These are the issues I have," and talk to a doctor and say, "These are the problems I have, I want to get better," most of them won't do that, and they won't get better. And it's just a vicious cycle. And we want to stop it because our kids are predisposed. You know, some of them witnessed abuse, so they become abusers, and some of them just have the mental health issues that if they don't get the proper help, they have anger issues, they have violent issues, you know. So this is the problem. This is why there's so many of these people out there. And it took me 2 years to finally, well, he kind of dumped me, but it took me 2 years to finally let go. And yes, by then I did start seeing red flags, because I knew more. Back in the 90s, 2000, red flags, you know? My parents knew I loved him and I wasn't leaving him. You know, my friends, a lot of them disappeared. I mean, we're friends now, but they were scared of him. So, you know, we all experience that same trauma, that same, you know, neediness, vulnerability, where sometimes we go right into the similar kind of situation. And I had a lot of help, and I was still getting help from the same therapist from back then. And I would be like, I'm not going back. I'm not, and he would suck me back in again, because we're needy. We don't want to be alone. It's horrible being alone. But you know what? I finally set my boundary, and I said, I'd rather be alone than be in bed crying 24/7. That's how I looked at it. And then I started delving into it, and realizing there was emotional abuse involved. And so now the trust is a very big issue. You know, it's very scary. You know, I have this wall that's built up around me, you know. So I'm trying to focus on my, you know, the NASCA, the anything that I could do to help others, on my kids, on positive, other positive things. Yes, it's lonely, but I'm not going to go and be a victim again. And I'm not a narcissistic sociopath who just constantly needs a new victim. So, you know, that's where I stand. So
That's a journey, isn't it? You know, when I heard you about mentioning the loneliness and your choice to be alone, I think it's very
I don't want to be. I don't want to
yes,
be.
it is, you know, it is very powerful because so many women, like, you know, the stats shows that uh, uh, on average, a woman it takes about 7 times for a woman finally decide to leave. The food, you know, many of the reasons you mentioned are similar to that, right? Because you just still have hope. Maybe he will change. No, he loves me. Why would he actually do that? And all of those thoughts come through your mind until, in your case, the final, I would say, the final incident was that he strangled you trying to get your bank card. You know, so many other women might not have that final event, and they're still kind of buried in their own thoughts, trying to think of the good old times. But you have to think of, you know, the times that he's abusing you and where you are now. And if you're listening and if you're in this situation, there are people out there, you know, like Bailey says, the support group. And I'm so glad I saw so many wonderful and beautiful pictures of your posts of your friends, and it's so great, and it's very important to have the support group, and I'm proud of you to cut the ties on some of the friends because you don't need them. Some of them maybe you know, a relationship that was friends that are mutual friends of the both of you. Some of them,
No, they all dropped him. That was not the problem, because
oh,
people were
okay,
scared. People were scared. I had to move out of the community because I kind of was left alone, you know. Didn't have a support. And my kids were very angry. We
yes,
lived there 10 years. So, you know, it was very, very difficult, because where I live now, I'm very isolated, not far from there, not far from my parents. But, you know, I do get together with my friends every other week. And, you know, I try to do as much as I can. I go to the gym. I'm a workoutaholic. That's like my biggest sanity thing. Um, so, and I encourage people that are going through bad times, take a walk. I had 2 car accidents in January and February. I was rear-ended,
oh
and
no,
then COVID happened. So can you imagine the depression I went into, because I couldn't
yeah,
release any of my I became like insane.
wow, I didn't know that. Are you okay now?
Yeah, I had a lot of therapy and everything, and I think I'm gonna I probably will be in pain for a long time, but I'm learning to live with it, and getting back into working out and trying to run a little, at least walk every night. But I do work out somewhat every single day, 6 days a week usually. And I think that releasing a serotonin is like the most important thing when you're on when you know, it's better than medication. It really is.
Exactly. Yeah.
But one more, I know that we're probably running out of time, but I wanted to say about, again, we are not loved by these people because they don't know how to love, okay? We are their possessions, and they are obsessed with us, and they are in control of us. Now, the red flags, we know more because people like us are bringing the awareness out. And again, to that Portia, I'm so glad to see, after everything she went through, that she's out there doing the same thing we are, and I hope maybe to connect with her. And you know, if we are not out there advocating and doing all this stuff, you know, again, there's so many women that don't even realize. And now we have now we have resources. Now there's so much out there help, and you know, all these shelter places that have the groups, they have all these people there that will direct you in the right places to get the right help. And the one thing that she mentioned here about people with kids, let me tell you this, okay? Leave for your kids, because that was my biggest mistake, okay? I had so many chances to have him locked up, and I kept saying, I can't do this to my kid's father again. Because otherwise, your kids are witnessing more and more abuse, and you're allowing it, and they're seeing that it's okay. And what are you doing? Starting another cycle. And
you'll
kids
never get out of it.
that witness abuse can be abusers, are considered abused, number one, can turn out abusers. My son, unfortunately, my oldest had a mental breakdown, and I'm not even going to go there right now. My middle son that saved my life got cancer. He had 4 surgeries. We just had his 4th surgery. My youngest is a tough cookie, and you know, you screw him over, even though he was very close to his dad. He screwed him over. He will never give him another chance. Even though I've allowed him, you know, my ex will say, oh, she alienates the kids from me. They have to do it behind her back. This kid had many chances to call his dad. He's 16. He has a phone, you know. Anyway, so I'm saying you need to have a plan. You can't pick up and leave because it could be very dangerous. You have to have a plan. You have to have people that know what you're going through, know what you are planning to do, and be there to help you, and leave for your kids. That's my message. And I want to tell you something. I want to make it very clear. I'm not a professional. I have an associate's degree in liberal arts. I've taken many different free courses that had to do with domestic violence, all these different things that I was able to take that were free, but I never went back to school to get my bachelor's, which maybe I will, I don't know. But this is my experience, my personal experience, the personal experiences of the people that are close to me, that I love, that we have in common. I am lucky I have a very good support system. My family is amazing. And, you know, just, you know, there is a life after this. Like you know yourself, you know, and there are many women that have gone on, like in NASCA, that have gone just from our little family. I mean, we're a big family, but just from NASCA family, you see how many people have gone on to help others. It's unbelievable. And then there are some that just never move on. They never get the proper help because their mental health is really, really bad. They were really damaged, which is sad. But you can go on, you can lead a happy life. It takes time, you know, and, you know, there is resources now. We know more now, and women, men, nobody needs to live that way. Nobody. So that's my message, and I hope that, you know, I know probably went over time and everything, but I wanted to get a little bit of everything in. So I
Yeah.
guess I'll give you the information where people can get a hold of me. I'm very cautious because I do have a stalker.
We will have our information. If anyone who want to contact you,
Yeah.
we will pass them down to you. This way we can screen them and you can screen them and make the choice of who to contact. But thank you, so much for making the takeaway about what people should do. And in short, your safety is number one. Just like Bailey said, leave. If you're alone, leave. If you are with kids, leave for your own sanity, for your own safety. And like she said, it's very important that you have a safety plan. So, there are so many wonderful nonprofit organizations like NASCA, and this show is sponsored by the National Veterans Chamber of Commerce, who supports the freedom of any sorts of trauma, including the sexual and gender-based abuses. And here in Houston, this is sponsored by Hope PYX Global, that we are an organization that combats sex trafficking, sexual abuse, and domestic abuse. And if you are anywhere else, make sure that you call the foreign numbers. If you are a victim of sexual abuse, call the sexual abuse hotline, which is 1-800-656-4673. And if you are a victim of domestic violence, call the following hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. And we will be linking these information at the content section below, and as well as Miss Bailey Smith's information if you need to contact her. But once again, this is the Miss Texas Show, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you find this information useful, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and most importantly, share, so that you can share to our community. These things are happening in our backyard. And we didn't know, just like Bailey said, she didn't know that. She thought she was in a, yes, there are some kind of signs that she didn't know was red flags, but she thought she was in a lovely and happily married relationship. So people need to be educated. We all have the freedom to make our choices, and we all should not have to be in fear. And if you feel that you're in immediate danger, call 911 immediately. But thank you so much, Bailey, for being here today and sharing this, wonderful story and the message. I'm sorry you had to go through what you have gone through, but just like you said, I believe in God myself, and I know that there is a reason why things happen to people, happen to us. And that is what makes and what shapes us today. And look at you today. You are so wonderful and dedicated and volunteering all your time, your private time, and passionately, most important, to help the different nonprofit organizations and the different people out there so that we can bring the awareness and bring the prevention. So once again, this is the Miss Texas Show, and we will be seeing you soon again. Bye for now. Thank you again, Bailey.
Thank you.